So I'm here with Sergey Belousov at the W Hotel in San Francisco. Sergey, we actually met in Russia. I was just there a couple of weeks ago. And you are an example of one of the new up-and-coming private companies in Russia. And I think there's probably a dozen of these companies, maybe more, companies that have become fairly large. And I think you said that you're in the realm of 100 million plus in revenue now. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to do business in Russia. You were talking about how it's hard to come across some high-end architects and program managers, but Russia has a reputation of having really talented engineers. So tell us a little bit about why that is, why it's hard to come across some of these people.
Well, I think if you think about technologies, you can find very, very good technologies in Russia, and Russia was producing very sophisticated technologies which was used in a variety of different industries. Now, technology is not what you sell is products. And making a product out of the technology is happening only in the society and in the place where you have competition, where you have commercial business. There was no commercial business in Russia 20 years ago, right? It was all a government business, and it started to privatize in around 91, and then you get commercial business right now. Now, as such, there are people who are very good technologists, and you can find engineers, but people who are required to make those technologies into products, they were much less.
Right.
And you can get those people, even in US right now, those people are not really educated in schools. Most of the time you hire people with experience. And in order to be a program manager or in order to be an architect, which are two very important professions, you need to have maybe 10 years experience.
Right.
There isn't many companies in Russia which produce commercial software products which are that old.
So are you doing most of your hiring over here in the US? Because you're here, you have an office here and you're based here.
We are hiring everywhere, but we are definitely hiring in Russia right now. Considering there are those 12 companies, there are some people to hire which are program managers and architects, but we did hire a number of senior engineering people whom we moved back to Russia or moved to Russia over here or in Seattle or somewhere in the US. Because again, the issue here is that in order to produce a product which is competitive with, I don't know, let's say Microsoft or let's say VMware, you have to have people who are equally experienced, and it's just harder to find them in Russia. Right. They are not readily available if you want to scale your company. They are becoming more available right now.
So revenue. So can we safely say that you're 100 million or so a year?
We are over 100 million in revenue. That's what we publicly state.
And you said in Moscow when you were talking in front of the group that you have you're probably looking over the next 4 years at revenue growth of about 30%. Or so.
30 to 40%.
That's pretty strong. Where is that revenue coming from? Can you tell us a little bit about your business? I mean,
our business is kind of really two businesses in one, connected through technology. It's desktop virtualization, primarily desktop virtualization on the Mac, and that's 35% of our business. And 65% of our business is service automation software for service providers who serve small businesses, full IT services to small businesses.
Right. And
most of the sides of the business are actually growing.
And you're the leader in the desktop virtualization for the Mac side, right?
We are the leader in both places, actually.
Okay.
We are the leader in both places. We tend to believe into the very basic business strategy that in order for you to be long-term profitable, you have to be a market leader.
Right. Okay.
So we are trying to find the segments where we can be a market leader. We are the market leader on the Mac with over 70% market share, probably closer to 80 by now, and we are definitely the leader in the service provider space.
Right, and you're offering cloud services to companies.
Well, we are not offering cloud services. We are offering service automation software, which is used by service providers, which are either hosters like GoDaddy, telcos like, I don't know, let's say Deutsche Telekom, distributors like Tech Data, or ISVs like Yardi or Intuit, and they use our software to offer IT services to small businesses.
So you were saying that Bill Gates, you'd heard that Bill Gates was saying that there might be two clouds at the end of the day, right? Microsoft and Google, or so it was said. Why won't there be two clouds, or do you think there will be?
Well, first of all, I think at some point there was a interesting book which was called Big Switch. and it was talking about the fact that the electricity industry will consolidate.
Yeah.
And there will be very few providers of electricity, and I think that hasn't happened. So there are probably a few hundred providers of electricity in the United States, and many thousands of providers of electricity globally.
Right.
So the degree of consolidation, which at some point Google and Microsoft were pitching, is simply hasn't been visible anywhere. Now, second of all, you have to understand that everybody talk about computing as a commodity, but the problem with commodity is that the misunderstanding with commodity is that people believe that commodity is bad because commodity is free. Well, not really. Oil is a commodity, but oil companies make trillions of dollars in revenues,
right,
and hundreds of billions of dollars in profits. So it's not free commodity. The next problem with commodity is that commodity is not something which you buy cheaper if you buy more. So what's the leverage of Microsoft? Well, they typically hear about Microsoft as a company which can buy invest $1 billion a year in infrastructure. Well, the reality is that if you buy more infrastructure, you don't pay less, you pay more. Same with oil. If you want to buy 1 million barrels, you pay a certain price. If you want to buy 100 million barrels,
right,
you potentially pay a higher price. If you want to buy a billion barrels, you will pay even higher price. So there is not really a leverage there.
Okay.
And sort of all, really, it's IT is a service industry, and there is no example of a service industry which has been generally as consolidated, because there is always a different additional features you can add to certain service to differentiate from your competition.
Right. Let's go through the list of some of the Russian companies that are like yourself, private, that have been working for a few years, maybe 0 to 10 years, right? So there's Yandex, there's Kaspersky, there's Acronis, CFT,
Center of Financial Technologies.
That's right. MetaQuotes, Alita, IPG Photonics,
1S.
They're 1S. So it's a good 10 companies that are making between 100 million to 200, even sometimes 300 million dollars in revenue.
Sometimes 500 million dollars. Nobody knows how big is Kaspersky right now.
So, we saw Baidu in China, doing search and going public, and now we're seeing Russia, a Yandex, similar company, probably going to go public soon. It seems like Russia is 1 or 2 years behind China and India in terms of filling out the web commerce, web services.
I think all of those countries have their own different paths, right?
Yeah.
And India is a country which highly relies on outsourcing, and there's lots of companies which go public out of India which are related to outsources and services.
Right.
China is a country which highly relies on its internal market.
Right.
It has a huge domestic market, and there's lots of companies which are going public based on that. Russia has its own path, and most of those companies here, with the exception of Yandex and Mail.ru, are actually focused on a global market. And so I wouldn't really compare them. It's the countries have different history,
right,
but I do think that over the next, say, 3 years, there will be several billion plus exits out of Russia.
Is Parallels going to be one of them?
Who knows?
Where would you go public? Would it be New York or would it be somewhere else?
Well, if Parallels or Acronis, which is my other company, will go public, that will probably be US. But again, nothing is specifically said, and it's just
Okay. Now you'd mentioned that you were considering stepping down from Parallels.
Well, not exactly stepping down. I'm considering to have somebody to do. When you are a CEO of the company, you have different things you need to do. One of them is you need to do kind of problem solving, firefighting. That's fun.
Yeah.
Another one, you need to think about strategy. That is also fun. And unfortunately, with a company which is growing non-explosively, 30-40% is fast, but it's not explosively. You also need to do a lot of execution, which is day-to-day execution, which is not particularly fun for me. And I'm thinking to have someone to do execution.
Because you've been doing it for 10 years, right?
I've been doing it for 10 years, but it was growing faster before.
Yeah.
30-40% is a fast growth, but
that is fast.
If you look at our growth from 2002, it will probably be closer to 100% on the average.
Right.
And so I'm thinking about having someone to do execution and continue to be executive chairman at the company and I don't know, chief architect or something like that. So I will continue to be involved, but not in the execution, rather in strategy and in new businesses.
How is that search going? Can you talk about, are you searching in the US or are you?
We are not actively searching actually,
okay.
But I don't think it is, Parallels is still a lot of fun, and it's also, even though it's not necessarily a small company, it's probably out of all companies, which is on that list on the table, which you just listed, is the most startup company.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's lots of things which are still changing in the industry, which is in very fast-growing markets, lots of different changes in the vendor ecosystems and so on and so forth. So I don't think you can hire. It's difficult to hire just the professional president or professional CEO. It's more of an art. So we are not actively searching, but we are considering a variety of alternatives.
Nice. Okay. And then you talked about joining a fund when you do step down. Can you talk a little bit about how that's going? What sort of structure would you set up? A venture fund. I'm assuming you're going to be investing in startups. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So if you look at my track record, I have been mostly successful in doing seed and early stage investments. And two companies did quite well, which is Acronis and Parallels. Both are well over $100 million in revenue, and both are less than 10 years old. But there are several other companies which are a little bit smaller, which I have also done, and they all fall into the seed and early stage. And it's much better to actually build one big company, like a lot of the successful people in the IT industry did. But unfortunately, I haven't done that. I have been doing maybe 10 plus technology and software companies. And so I believe that me and my team, our main expertise is early stage and seed stage investments. And that's what we want to do. We want to set up a venture fund which will invest in what we understand. And that is global expansion, that is internet and software, that is seed stage at this point, below $2 million investments, and that is Russian tech teams. Russian tech teams, not necessarily in Russia anywhere, but that's what we understand better. There's no specific focus on Russia, but naturally Russia is where we will get majority of our deal flow and so on and so forth. And I will do it regardless of my engagement with Parallels. If I'm still full-time CEO of Parallels, I'll do it part-time.
Mm-hmm. Is there a Russian version of the first round capital or founders fund already? I mean,
there are a number of funds, but I don't think they are nearly as sophisticated as what we're trying to set up.
Yeah. Okay.
To be frank.
Okay. How large is the fund going to be?
Below 50 million.
50 million. Are you fundraising?
We are kind of fundraising, but the money is not an issue.
Okay.
Issue is just finding smart money. With seed round investment, unfortunately, it's kind of a little bit of a special work where you actually get to need to help your companies a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a late stage investment, you want quiet LPs.
Yeah.
In a seed range investment, you actually want LPs which can actually help.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unusual. So partners help, but everybody help because all help matters. Small companies need all kinds of help.
Right.
So we're looking for smart money.
Okay. Okay, great. Sergey, congratulations for your progress on Parallels and what you've done to build that company. And good luck with the venture fund. Sounds really exciting. Look forward to following up and seeing what happens.
Thank you.